From paradise for a new life to homelessness capital, Las Vegas leads the US in 2025 with a record rate. Each year, the city spends nearly $1 billion to cope, but the number of homeless people continues to rise. How could a place shimmering with neon lights, where fortune can change lives in an instant, reveal such an ironic reality? Right next to the glittering casinos, thousands of people huddle in storm drains, huddle in makeshift tents, and lie sprawled on the sidewalks. Every day is a silent battle. Right next to the dazzling boulevard where two opposing worlds coexist in one city. Where dreams are illuminated, but outside, only the darkness of homelessness remains. In this video, we'll peel back the layers of illusion to reveal a Las Vegas never seen on a postcard. Drainage tunnels turned into shelters, free meals becoming lifelines, and the American dream shattered right on the desert sidewalk. This is not just the story of a city, but also reflects a broader reality where the brighter the light, the deeper the darkness. Stay tuned until the end, and you'll understand why this crisis not only haunts Las Vegas, but also serves as a wake-up call for the entire United States today. Las Vegas often calls itself the entertainment capital of the world, a title that sounds proud at first. The skyline here sparkles with five-star resorts, world-class restaurants, and sold-out shows, attracting over 40 million visitors in 2025. But the interesting thing is, just a few blocks off the main avenue, a completely opposite reality emerges. Nearly 7,906 homeless people were recorded in Clark County in a single night, an increase of about 20% compared to the previous year. This city seems overly confident in claiming that glamorous title, while just beneath the surface of luxury lies a painful reality that few dare to name. This is perhaps a humanitarian crisis unfolding in the shadows of billion-dollar casinos. The gap between the rich and the poor is becoming increasingly fragile. As housing costs skyrocket and stable jobs seem increasingly scarce, many residents are left behind by the current of life. In a city that generates billions of dollars from tourism, why are so many people being left behind? That question prompted deeper street stories, revealing the human cost of a city built on illusion. And when we peel back the glitzy facade of Las Vegas, what remains are the lives of resilience and the struggle to survive. Las Vegas seems to thrive on the spend money industry. Everyone who comes here has a dream in their head to win big, eat well, and live like a billionaire. But reality suggests a two-sided economy, a paradise for the few and a debt trap for the many. The homeless people here are perhaps the clearest mirror reflecting that imbalance. On one side, wasteful extravagance, and on the other, struggling to cling to every inch of concrete in the harsh desert. If you want to know why so many people here end up homeless, it only takes a simple calculation. Las Vegas certainly has jobs: waiters, housekeepers, taxi drivers, casino security. But most of them are low-paying jobs, around 12 to 15 per hour. For example, a hotel housekeeper working 40 hours a week, which is about 160 hours a month. With a salary of $13 per hour, the pre-tax income is approximately $2,080 per month. After deducting federal and state income taxes, the net amount received is approximately $1,800. Meanwhile, the cost of renting a one-bedroom apartment in Vegas is already over $1,500 per month. That's not even counting electricity, water, food, healthcare, and transportation. As a result, many people have jobs and salaries, but that salary is never enough to live decently. This seems to be the common poverty trap found in service cities like Vegas, where money flows freely from tourist pockets but slips through the hands of the local residents themselves. Las Vegas is truly a master of creating illusions. This city can build pyramids, miniature Eiffel Towers, or Venice replicas just to please tourists, yet it struggles with the simplest problem: how to provide a roof for an ordinary worker. It's laughably ironic that things considered terrible elsewhere are painted as pluses in Vegas. The obsession with gambling is called a high-octane experience. Shady services become vibrant nightlife, and wasteful spending turns into living life to the fullest once in a lifetime. However, while the city didn't hesitate to illuminate the entire dazzling casino strip with billions of dollars, it struggled to find a way to solve the homelessness crisis right in its own backyard. It seems that, with Las Vegas, it's easier to throw an extravagant party for strangers than it is to build affordable housing, or simply take care of the food and shelter for its own residents. Behind the numbers are real-life stories. A veteran in his 60s who used to work in hotel maintenance now has to sleep in his old car in the parking lot. $1,000, a 70-year-old woman in the United States believed Las Vegas was the ideal retirement destination, now lives in a temporary shelter inside. Just for a few days of travel. This place recently, the US government now has just introduced a shocking policy. These lives show that the homeless are not necessarily strangers, but could be our neighbors, friends, or even anyone if they stumble one day. And when looking at the big picture, that paradox becomes clearer than ever. A city that welcomes over 40 million tourists each year, constantly building more skyscrapers and billion-dollar casinos, yet still allows nearly 8,000 residents to live in precarious conditions without a roof over their heads. The brighter the light, the deeper the shadow. That's perhaps a reflection of America today, where dreams are openly sold and the truth is hidden. But the story doesn't just end with losing a roof over their heads, because behind it, there's another darkness engulfing many people in a long-lasting battle with addiction and wounds right on the streets. And that's where the story of Chapter 2 begins. In Las Vegas, some people might still call it an entertainment paradise, but for many, another description sounds more accurate. Hell right under the neon lights. Many estimates suggest that between 1,200 and 1,500 people are living in the city's sewers. To be frank, a sewer isn't meant for humans. It's more suitable for trash, insects, or burrowing animals. However, now people are crowding down there to find some shade rather than baking in the desert heat. And you know, each of these tunnels seems to become the perfect breeding ground for disease germs. That damp and dark place was like a nursery for coughs, fevers, or chronic lung diseases. So, from initially just needing to solve the problem of shelter, people now also have to consider treating illnesses. As a result, instead of just lacking shelter, people were also faced with the added scene of crowding in the emergency room. Hospital beds are limited, but the number of patients keeps increasing steadily, to the point where some nights people have to sleep on stretchers in the hallway. It sounds like a bitter farce. After solving the housing issue, a long line of hospital beds is opened up. There was no sunlight at all, only the sound of dripping water and the humidity clinging to every concrete slab. In the summer, temperatures can soar above 100 degrees Fahrenheit, turning sidewalks into frying pans and dark cellars into furnaces. When winter arrives, the cold from the desert sweeps down, making the elderly seem to have to brace themselves through each night. An old fan that wouldn't run, a few torn blankets, and a leaky pot placed under a dripping pipe seemed to be all they had left to rely on. Even on the ground, Vegas isn't easy. The desert climate shows no mercy. It scorches during the day and freezes at night. According to local reports, the entire city only has about 700 shelter beds. Many people have to hear no room every night from places like Catholic charities and are forced to set up temporary tents or find park benches. For them, each passing day feels like a silent battle to reclaim the most basic necessities: a little food, a sip of water, and the hope of safety. In that darkness is the story of a 68-year-old man, a former veteran who served overseas. After his wife passed away, the military pension plus Social Security didn't seem to be enough to cover both medication and rent at the same time. Chronic heart disease forced him to choose: medication to live another day, or a roof over his head for one night. He once said in a lost voice, I thought this country would take care of those who served it. But the lights here seem to be only for the tourists, not for us. For those who have experienced life, that saying sounds both bitter and familiar. A new day often begins with a heavy, musty smell, followed by a line for meals from the charity group. For many, it's a repetitive schedule, not unlike an hourglass, except that each grain of sand that falls seems to bring with it a little more exhaustion. Even if they managed to find some food, they still had to be wary of the scorching heat or the biting cold of the desert. And perhaps it was that harsh rotation that caused the already tired body to quickly collapse. Many elderly people have to be hospitalized not because of a sudden pain, but simply because their bodies cannot withstand living in a shelter originally intended for rainwater. Not a few people here are completely dependent on free kitchens, water distribution points, or the charity group's bus trips. But that dependence isn't just material, it's also in the faith that has gradually disappeared. When the authorities often call them a problem, their very existence becomes evidence of the invisible graves left by indifference. On a freezing night, the image of the veteran sitting quietly dividing his pills in half to make them last a few more days perhaps says it all. Las Vegas may shine on the surface, but beneath it, darkness still devours those with nowhere else to go. Las Vegas today seems to be caught in a perfect storm, where all economic, social, and political factors collide, resonate, and together create an increasingly difficult-to-resolve homelessness crisis. This isn't just about not enough housing, but a combination of overlapping causes, like a game at Caesar's Palace where everyone knows the outcome will be a loss. First is the housing issue. Rental prices in Las Vegas have increased by over 30% in just a few years, while many people's salaries haven't even kept up. The apartments once called working class have suddenly become luxury items. For the elderly who rely solely on social security, that gap is like a one-way ticket to the streets. Ironically, Vegas can build a luxury hotel with the Hilton logo in a few months to welcome tourists. But building a few affordable buildings for the poor is slow and sluggish, as if they're running a marathon with turtles. The next reason lies in the job market. This city was almost entirely dependent on the service and tourism industries. As the economy fluctuates from recession and pandemics to changing consumer trends, thousands of jobs disappear overnight. Unskilled workers who have no significant savings are immediately plunged into precarity. Once he lost his job, coupled with rising rent, the path from the Motel 6 apartment to the sidewalk became shorter than ever. What about the welfare system? The budget money spent sounds impressive. Hundreds of millions of USD for affordable housing projects. But in reality, the construction progress is so slow that many people joke, if you wait for a house from this program, you'll probably live as long as the Eiffel Tower. Meanwhile, the waiting list grew longer, and outside, temporary tents and old cars sprang up as quickly as Walmart signs after each expansion season. Healthcare is also a link in the vicious cycle. Many homeless people already suffer from chronic illnesses or mental health issues. Without insurance and medicine, they easily become exhausted. Some seek temporary escapes, only to be marginalized by society again. Consequences: illness and the streets are constantly pushing and pulling, and every year more new people join that cycle. The hospital is overcrowded, there aren't enough beds, and the hallways have become makeshift waiting rooms. Some people sarcastically say, the ER here is as crowded as a Black Friday at Costco, except no one wants to be in this line. Finally, there's the story of unbalanced development. This city knows how to build luxurious casinos like the Bellagio, glamorous shopping malls, and expensive Michelin-starred restaurants. But it severely lacks basic infrastructure for daily life: affordable housing, community clinics, and a low-cost transportation system for low-income workers. This is called the Vegas paradox, a place that can light up the entire desert with Coca-Cola signs, but doesn't have enough light bulbs to illuminate. the kitchens of ordinary people. All those pieces: soaring house prices, mass job losses, weak welfare, fragile healthcare, and uneven development combined to create a perfect storm. And in this storm, the least resilient people, the elderly, the sick, and the working poor, are the ones who are swept away first. Las Vegas was once likened to a place where you could change your life overnight. But in reality, 2025 revealed a gap that is difficult to bridge. On the ground are luxurious hotels where a cocktail costs the same as a poor family's entire week's worth of groceries. Just below, tens of thousands of residents are having to scrape by to pay their rent, which has increased by over 40% in less than a decade. That distance isn't just a statistic. It's like an invisible wall pushing thousands of people to the margins of society. This paradox is evident in daily life. On one hand, tourists are willing to spend thousands of dollars on show tickets, while local residents struggle with rising electricity and water bills that increase with each hot season. For seniors living on a fixed pension, this disparity is even more painful. They once witnessed a time when a worker's salary was enough to support an entire family, but now, Social Security seems insufficient in the face of rent exceeding $1,500 per month. Inequality in Las Vegas isn't just about money, but also about opportunity. Jobs that were once stable, waiting tables, hotel security, are now short-term contracts, low-paying and without insurance. Older workers, after decades of service, seem to be the first to be sidelined. Meanwhile, tourists with deep pockets are still served with every luxury service. Differentiation is also evident in social infrastructure. The city centre is lavishly invested in for tourists, while the old residential areas are run down. Roads are potholed, public hospitals are overcrowded, and schools lack resources. In the United States. All of this paints a picture of contrast, where development only serves a small group, just for a few days of travel. Perhaps the most heartbreaking thing is the indifferent attitude. The US government has just introduced a shocking policy. Las Vegas in the highest inequality group in the United States. Public opinion was only briefly stirred before it subsided. Meanwhile, ordinary people still struggle with soaring living costs, seeing wealth right before their eyes but never being able to reach it. If Vegas was once a symbol of opportunity, its lights now seem to shine only for the few, leaving the majority to live in the shadow of an increasingly distant dream. As the neon lights of Las Vegas began to shine again after months of closure due to COVID-19, many thought the city had been revived. Casinos are opening, tourists are flocking back, and on the surface, life seems to be returning to normal. But behind the scenes, perhaps the legacy of the pandemic still haunts and is even exacerbating the homelessness crisis in unimaginable ways. The pandemic swept through Las Vegas like a storm, wiping out tens of thousands of jobs that were heavily reliant on the tourism and service industries. When flights stopped landing and hotels closed, waiters, taxi drivers, and cleaning staff, the city's frontline workers, seemed to suddenly become invisible. Some reports indicate that the unemployment rate in Nevada reached nearly 30% in the spring of 2020, a record high in the state's history. For many poor working families, going without pay for a few months means losing their homes forever, because rent doesn't wait and medical bills still pile up. COVID-19 also left an invisible scar: the health of the people. Many people who were severely ill are now living with long-term after-effects, such as difficulty breathing, fatigue, and worsening cardiovascular disease. For the elderly, this means higher medication costs while income remains unchanged. Once medication and rent became mutually exclusive options, many people were forced to choose. The streets, the red and green tents that have sprung up, are not only symbols of poverty, but also a reminder that the virus has left an unwanted legacy. Beyond the economy and health, COVID-19 is also disrupting Las Vegas's already fragile social fabric. Churches, veterans organizations, and community clubs that once served as a spiritual lifeline for the elderly have been forced to close for extended periods. And when those doors reopened, many people were no longer able to return. The feelings of isolation, loss of trust, and being cut off from the community have led many elderly residents into a vicious cycle. Disconnection, loss of income, and then loss of housing. The already fragile support system was stretched to the breaking point. COVID-era emergency assistance programs like rental relief packages, supplemental unemployment benefits, or federal funding for temporary relâchement have expired. But the crisis didn't end at the same time. When the relief funds were withdrawn, the people who had relied on them seemed to be abandoned right on the sidewalk. In fact, many non-profit organizations admit that after 2021, the number of emergency calls for shelter skyrocketed, while resources plummeted. Perhaps the greatest irony lies in the fact that the pandemic, intended as a test of societal resilience, has instead left a legacy that has become a new chasm. Those who once served tables in hotels years ago may now be sleeping on park benches. Those who once held the role of family pillars are now likely queuing for free meals. COVID-19 has faded from the news cycle, but for Las Vegas, its echoes still reverberate on every sidewalk, in every tunnel, and in every tent. That legacy is not just a memory of a disease, but also of real people, lives that seem to be pushed further away from the American dream they once believed in. And if you look at the tent cities that sprang up after the pandemic, you can clearly see what the virus left behind hasn't disappeared. It has only changed shape, becoming a shadow that clings tightly to this city. If people used to think of homelessness as being linked to old age or unemployment, the picture in Las Vegas today is even more grim. An increasing number of young people are falling into homelessness. A generation once expected to be the future of America now struggles to find temporary shelter to get through the day. A recent survey shows that the rate of homeless youth in Nevada is increasing rapidly. The main reason is that rent far exceeds income from precarious, low-paying jobs. A university degree no longer seems sufficient to enter the middle class as it once was. Many young people, even after graduating, still only work as servers, delivery drivers, or in part-time jobs, with incomes insufficient to pay for a small room. As a result, many people are forced to live in their cars, stay in cheap motels, or set up temporary tents on the outskirts. A couple in their early 20s said that after losing their jobs at a hotel, they ran out of savings and ended up sleeping in their car. Every morning, the first thing wasn't planning for the future, but finding a free place to shower before going to look for work. The sad thing is that most of them don't suffer from serious illnesses or get involved in vices. They simply lose the survival game between expenses and income. For many older viewers, that image is easy to make one feel sad. If even the youth, a nation's most precious asset, are being pushed onto the streets, what will be left of America tomorrow? Las Vegas still shines brightly every night, but behind those lights lies the darkness of thousands of lives left behind. The 34% increase in homelessness is not just a number, but a reflection of the elderly huddled in tents, veterans sleeping in old cars, or young people forced to live in sewers. The causes are not singular, but rather the confluence of a perfect storm: rising rents, precarious employment, inadequate welfare, the lingering legacy of COVID-19, and skewed development. The city can build billion-dollar casinos or symbols of luxury for tourists, but it struggles with the basic problem: affordable housing for its residents. The crisis in Vegas therefore not only reflects the injustice within a city, but also serves as a mirror reflecting the cracks in America today, where the dazzling external light cannot conceal the growing darkness within. The views and analyses presented in the video are general, critical, and exploratory observations, and do not substitute for any legal, medical, or social advice. Viewers are encouraged to think independently, discuss and consult multiple sources before making judgments or taking action. Just to set foot in the United States, privacy,
not to buy
and
a
dignity
house,
of every individual,
not for work,
especially the homeless,
just for a few days
and are committed
of travel.
to not increasing
Recently,
discrimination
the US
or prejudice
government
in any
has
form.
just introduced a shocking